one way to think of this class is that it's 4 parts that have been welded and melded into one mostly unified whole. 4 parts. The first part is people whose parents took the single most important and precious thing in their lives, their children, and dropped them off at a nasty, supremely inadequate strip mall for their primary education. And that is a weird thing to do, which is to say that we have weirdness at our core. Second group. The next group is composed of people whose parents dropped them off to be with those weird kids, presumably just because the school now had a brick building and lots of well-functioning toilets, which is also a weird thing to do in my book. The third group of this class is the group that took the leap to spend their senior year with those weird kids, which means that we have courage and weirdness at our core. And then that's always a dangerous combo too. And then there's the fourth group. The final group is composed of the person who left a perfectly well-civilized country, crossed a very large ocean so that he could spend a year with those courageous weird kids. If you all are weirdos, then you are a beautiful bunch of weirdos whom we adore. And to state the obvious, weirdness and courage aligned is how motor vehicles end up in school lobbies. I can't technically applaud that, sorry. And to your credit, I'll add smarts to the mix because it's hard to bring a car into a school lobby without getting suspended, unless the principal is a total doofus. So either you're really smart or I'm a doofus, and you can decide. Weirdness, courage, and smarts. One way I gauge a senior class in these past 5 years when I have not been teaching is to look at them and see how much I just ache to have taught them, to have spent a year day by day in the English classroom with them. And listening to you all the other night at the senior dinner, it made me wish so much that I could have worked with you for a year or more in the classroom. I'm just so inspired by the people that you have become. And it would have been a privilege to have worked with you in the classroom. That aching is hedged by a basic worry, though, that I'm not sure I can hang intellectually with the likes of you. You're an intimidating group. My job as principal has been to find people who can hang with you intellectually, which is why mostly what I do for you now is hold the front door each morning and say good morning. And that I can do. As inspiring as the group as you are, admittedly, my tired little brain was struggling with a graduation speech for you. And so I flirted with something I did jokingly many years ago, which is to take a cue from the TV sitcom Modern Family. I think some of you know it. I think many of you probably know it. But for those of you who don't, there's 2 sisters in that sitcom, and they are polar opposites. One is pretty popular, fashion conscious. The other is smart, nerdy, and decidedly not fashion conscious. The nerdy one, Alex, is called on to make her middle school graduation speech. And she's planning a speech where she's going to rip her classmates in a rant and complaining about how they ignored her while she was studying and they were worried about boys in skinny jeans. Her sister, the cool one, knows what she's going to do and realizes that would be social self-sabotage. And she wants to stop her because it would make her next year, her first year of high school, miserable. And so she gives her sister the advice to use song lyrics for her speech. And in the end, Alex finds herself on stage delivering a "Don't stop believing, hold on to that feeling." And it's received with wild applause. So let's try it out. My dear seniors, do not stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. It almost works. But if you also employ the English teacher trick by which you read something more slowly than anybody else in the world would think necessary or possible, you get seniors. Don't Stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. And that almost sounds good to my English teacher here. I went to the top 40 charts, the current top 40 charts, to freshen it up a little bit. And here's where we get. Seniors, I hope someday we'll sit down together and laugh with each other about these days. These days. All our troubles will lay to rest, and we'll wish we could come back to these days. These days. What do you think? There is an up-and-coming group. I don't know if they've made it to the top 40 charts yet. I say group, it's more like it's a collaboration, really. It's between Noah, Lil Hunt, and C-Boogie. In fact, they're members of this class. And so with their inspired lyrics, you get, seniors, I got tape on my head. I got egg on my leg. It's everywhere. And really with that, I think I've said all that I want to say. But allow me 1 minute or two on a more serious note. A friend sent me an essay recently by Jonathan Franzen, and it made me think of you guys. And in the essay, Franzen, the author, he's wrestling with the ways that liking is different from loving. The way that social media, Facebook, click on it, liking is different from what he calls real getting down in the pit loving. He's worried that much of our technology makes us only more superficial, more self-centered, more self-referential. Essentially, he's concerned that we curate only the surface of ourselves in the search of light. And we end up thinking that the surface is the real, which often it is not. And that liking is the same as loving, which it definitively is not. He says, the big risk here, of course, is rejection. We can all handle being disliked now and then because there's an infinitely big pool of potential likers. But to expose your whole self, not just the likable surface, and to have it rejected can be catastrophically painful. The prospect of pain generally, the pain of loss, of breakup, of death, is what makes it so tempting to avoid love and stay safely in the world of liking. He then tells a story of being pulled from the safe world of liking into the world of real loving. Stay with me. He says, when I was in college, and for many years after, I liked the natural world. Didn't love it, but definitely liked it. It can be very pretty, nature. And since I was looking for things to find wrong with the world, I naturally gravitated to environmentalism because there were certainly plenty of things wrong with the environment. And the more I looked at what was wrong, an exploding world population, exploding levels of resource consumption, the trashing of the oceans, the logging of our last old growth, the angrier I became. Finally, in the mid-90s, I made a conscious decision to stop worrying about the environment. There was nothing meaningful that I personally could do to save the planet, and I wanted to get on with devoting myself to the things I loved. I still tried to keep my carbon footprint small, but that was as far as I could go without falling back into rage and despair. But then a funny thing happened to me. It's a long story, but basically, I fell in love with birds. I did this not without significant resistance because it's very uncool to be a bird watcher. But little by little, in spite of myself, I developed this passion. And although one half of a passion is obsession, the other half is love. And so, yes, I kept a meticulous list of all the birds I'd seen. And yes, I went to inordinate lengths to see new species but no less important, whenever I looked at a bird, any bird, even a pigeon or a robin, I could feel my heart overflow with love. And love, as I've been trying to say, is where our troubles begin. Because now, not merely liking nature, but loving a specific and vital part of it, I had no choice but to start worrying about the environment again. The news on that front was no better than when I decided to quit worrying about it. It was considerably worse, in fact, but now those threatened forests and wetlands and oceans weren't just pretty scenes for me to enjoy. They were the homes of animals I loved. And here's where a curious paradox emerged. My anger and pain and despair about the planet were only increased by my concern for wild birds. And yet, as I began to get involved in bird conservation and learn more about the many threats that birds face, it became easier, not harder, to live with my anger and despair and pain. How does this happen? I think, for one thing, that my love of birds became a portal to an important, less self-centered part of myself that I'd never even known existed. Which is what love will do to a person. Because the fundamental fact of all of this is that we're alive for a while, but we'll die before long. This fact is the real root cause of all our anger and pain and despair, and you can either run from that fact, or by way of love, you can embrace it. When you stay in your room in rage, or sneer, or shrug your shoulders, as I did for many years, the world and its problems are impossibly daunting. But when you go out and put yourself in real relation to real people, or even just real animals, there's a very real danger that you might love some of them. And who knows what might happen to you then. Seniors, we don't know what will happen to you now. But we have surrounded you with people who love their subjects, who love the process of learning and growing, and who love you, that you might be inspired then to find your own love. The beautiful thing about humans is that all of our true loves are specific, and they're all different. And the problem, of course, is that the world will always try to tell you what to like and what to love, even though those likes and loves are not true to you. It's society's conspiracy that Ralph Waldo Emerson was warning you about last year. But you will know your love not because it is easy, but because it is hard. But in the hard work of your love, you will feel most alive. Which calls to mind that short, simple sentence from William Penn, with which I'll close. Friends, let us see what love can do. Thank you.